Tutorials and good onboarding are two essential aspects that we've talked about on Plenty Critical Thoughts. These are things that can really impact whether or not a player is going to be interested in sticking with your game, and are oftentimes one of the major sources of churn for new and first timers. For today's critical thought, I want to talk a little bit about a game that doesn't quite do it right and why it is so difficult to onboard players when we discuss strategy or abstracted based design. Alright, before we get to the actual game footage, I end up somewhere down here. The game that we're going to be talking about, I don't want this to come off as an insult or attacking the developer. As we have discussed many times here, that bad onboarding and tutorials is something that we see from a lot of developers, not just first timers, but established people in the field. And especially when we have games that feature very unique rules, very interesting or esoteric mechanics. And that is where it gets very difficult compared to your traditional or your reflex driven game, where all you need to do is teach a player move, jump, and then let them figure things out along the way. And we'll probably be discussing more about tutorials and onboarding in a future roundtable. But with that, let me get down to my little corner. Alright, so here I am down here. The footage you're seeing is taken from the Tacticon Showcase, where we played of many strategy and tactical style games, these Doomed Isles. And this was a game that I thought the concept was great, but the tutorial was not good, to the point that people were complaining about on the forums. So we're going to do a little play-by-play as I fast forward and go through it here. I want to talk about where this tutorial messes up, and also some of the common things we see from tutorials and onboarding. So, right where I have it paused is I've already selected the game, set to play the tutorial, and we're going to see what the game does in terms of teaching. And of course, I have things muted so you don't hear myself talking in the background. So right now, it's walking us through, again, the basic controls. This is, again, one of the standards of any kind of onboarding. You've got to learn how to control your camera, how to move around. And the tutorial itself is going through everything step by step. And it is good right here that it's highlighting these different elements so that the player knows exactly where their focus should be. And I do like this idea that the UI, as you can see over the last 10 seconds, kind of unfolded itself from each tutorial prompt. So right now it is showing us what each card does. And these cards should be, I believe, chosen by the game. Like, this is not a randomly shuffle of random seed. Now, as we can see right here, it's teaching us how to play cards, how to discard cards, that kind of stuff. But you can see that there's problem number one. I'm going to pause it right here for a second. The first problem is that it's having me make a decision, but it's not telling me why I am making this decision. Yes, I clicked on a card, I'm putting it on this map, but again, where is the connective tissue? Why am I performing this action? And this is something for any developer who's working on a strategic or abstracted-based game needs to understand. The player needs to be able to process, what is my action doing, and how does it impact what's going on in the game? With this one, it doesn't seem to be doing that. So, yes, I can place a building down, but why? Where? Who, what, when, where, and why? So again, we know that this is a tutorial. We know that this is being scripted. Why is the game not telling me anything else? Having the player just do random stuff isn't teaching them why they should be doing this. And again, this is not a problem just fixed to these Doomed Isles. I see this in many strategy games. The Total War games, any of the Stellaris, Europa Universalis, and so on. So right now I'm putting stuff down, zooming in, all that good stuff. And now if we go just a little bit further here, which hopefully I can figure out how to do this on my interface here. So now we come to the second part of the tutorial. How do you buy more cards so you can add to your deck? And we come to another major problem with this tutorial. This is a game critical system because you see the cards that you start with are very basic. They're not enough to actually let you do literally anything in terms of a match. So you must rely on this harvest feature to get cards that you need. And the problem with what we just did right there, and in fact, I think I'm going to try and rewind for a second, is that those cards that I just picked were wrong. They were entirely useless. I'm going to pause it here for a second. The goal of this game, or the goal to get started, is that you need to start putting down structures that will gain resources each season. You want logging camps near forests, you want mines near rocks, that kind of stuff. If you don't have gold coming in, you can't purchase new cards. If you can't purchase new cards, you can't actually do anything in this game. So the tutorial is making a very critical mistake right here. It is letting me do stuff that is intentionally wrong. It is not telling me or even explaining to me what is the importance of this system. So what's going to end up happening is that I'm going to pick cards. I don't know what they're doing, and I'm going to fail because of it. And that's not hyperbole. If you follow this tutorial to the letter, you're going to fail the game. And that is not how you want to design this. And you'll see why in the coming minutes. So, once again, we're back to the main screen. The game is still just letting me put stuff down. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why I should be doing any of this. And I am basically being set up to lose. And again, the game is trying to do that ever popular thing of we're going to introduce everything one step at a time. So we're going to do System 1, System 2, System 3. Then we're going to do, Step 2 in System 1, Step 2 in System 2, Step 2 in System 3. That's not how you want to do things in an abstracted based game. Because you want to train the player and teach them in order of importance. In a civilization game, you're not going to start immediately working on military. You need to understand how to build your town up. You understand how to start collecting resources. If you try to teach everything in a linear fashion, what's going to end up happening is that that's not how the game is supposed to be played. And right here, you're seeing that same problem. It's teaching me how to rotate tiles. That sounds really great, but I have no resource construction right now. I have nothing that can be considered building up. And that is a huge problem. What they should have done in that first harvest was tell me, in order to actually do stuff, you need buildings on resources. So again, if the tutorial itself is scripted, or it should be scripted in this respect, it should have told me, well, you have lots of trees, here's a lumberyard, buy it and put it down, because the lumberyard will cut up the trees and will earn you resources because of it. And if I need gold, well, then I need a mine next to rocks. But again, we're on year 2 of the game, we have an alert that enemies are approaching, and guess what? I have no military. I have no idea what is happening. I'm just putting stuff down. Here's another harvest. And again, with the problem that enemies are attacking, this will be the point to let the player know, hey, maybe you should have some defenses going. This time I did buy the crossbow tower. But here's a fun fact. When you're playing the game, you may not get any defensive structures because of RNG. And that is its own problem, which we don't have the time to get to in this video. So, again, we're putting stuff down. I finally have gold coming in. That's very important, because without gold, I can't buy any more cards. And a lot of these cards have a limited use. That's that kind of heart that you saw like the top left of the woods there. So once that runs out, I'm out of cards. If I don't have any money coming in, I can't buy any new cards, which means I'm, well, SOL. And that is not good for this kind of game. So here I am trying to mull over where are these attacks coming from. It says enemy attacks next turn from the north, but what does that even mean? So we have the prompt letting us know that, hey, you're being attacked. You can click on this to figure out what is going on. So we're going to see the enemies make their way onto my base, and they're starting to cause a lot of trouble. Again, without any proper onboarding or reference, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. We did survive that, but that is not a long-term solution. As anyone who's played a strategy-based game knows, if you're already falling behind on turn 1, you're kind of in deep trouble. So to fast forward ahead a little bit more, we're in the situation where I am not getting enough resources, I don't have enough homes in order to get more workers, which means I don't have enough workers to go into my buildings in order to get me more resources. And what's about to happen is I'm about to get steamrolled by this second group of enemies. As they come on board, they're going to destroy my mine. And again, without having enough gold coming in, because I didn't know at the time how to get more gold, we're just being put into this downward spiral effect. And a lot of that could have been avoided by using proper tutorials and proper onboarding. Again, when the player is trying to understand how your game works, this is the time to be very direct about what are the thought processes and what is even your goal, or what should be your plan of action when you play this game. And some people may argue, well, then you're just telling the player how to play. But again, for a new player who has never touched a game like this, they're not going to have that connection between what mechanics do what. And because of this, again, I died. And for a lot of people, when they die like that, they're quitting the demo, they're quitting the game, and they're never going to come back. And so this time, when I load things up, I play without the tutorial, and I did a little bit better. But again, I am definitely that rare consumer that I will try again. For a lot of people, when they fail, they're giving up, they're uninstalling, and they may leave a bad review, and they are never going to come back. Alright, so we are back to full screen then to wrap up our critical thought. So to summarize, when it comes to onboarding in your game, you want to be introducing the elements in the order that they are important to the actual play. You don't want to just walk the player through every system one at a time, because that's not how you play a game. This is one of the problems I have with a lot of the Total War, Europa Universalis style games, where, yes, you walk me through, put a building down, build this, now do a battle. But that's not training the player as to what is the gameplay loop. How should you approach a turn? When did you make a mistake? Because again, if the player is failing and they do not understand why they failed, they are never going to learn, and most likely they're just going to stop playing, because why should they play a game that feels more like work to them rather than a game that, well, it feels like a game? And I'll be doing an upcoming critical thought about why losing is not fun, and that will certainly be a part of it. But I hope this helped you, and again, this is not meant to attack the developers of these doomed isles. They are not the only developer to fall prey to some of the challenges when it comes to onboarding like this. And when you're trying to teach the player, again, use the scripted nature of the tutorial to your advantage. You want the player to understand what is the worst possible scenario, what is good, what should be something that, hey, you should really take this. This is very important. Take it. You shouldn't leave the screen without it. And if the player can learn this stuff now and start putting together what should they be doing turn by turn, match by match, they can start building a schema or a strategy for how they're going to play this game. Because the thing that holds back a lot of strategy and abstracted-based games is very simply, how do you get somebody through the door? How do you get them past that tutorial? And again, as a one final pro tip, for any abstracted game, any game that features its own unique rule set and mechanics, make the tutorial required. And I know that sounds counterproductive, but if you're going to be giving the player a game that there is no comparison to any other title they've played, if the rules are so different, the game is so unique to play, you need to make sure they are exactly on the right page when they start, or they're going to load up, click on a few things and go, what's happening? And they're out. So here's my challenge for you watching this. Can you think of examples of strategy games? Again, we're not talking action, but strategy or abstracted-based games that did a really fantastic job of teaching the player unique or esoteric mechanics and systems. Let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Do that liking, subscribing, and commenting. Check out the Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in my books on design, they are available wherever books are being sold. Come back for discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.